We'll reconvene to open session. Could we please rise for the pledge? Roy, since it's your last meeting, you get to lead us.
Ready to begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's not my show.
And could we have roll call, please?
Director Forkroy.
Here.
Director Millage, excuse me.
Here.
Director Womack.
Present.
Vice President Sesania.
Here.
President Ohilske.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, report out of closed session. There was no reportable action. So public hearings and presentation. First of all, again, I just wanted to do a recognition of service to the community for Bruce D. Pickens, who was the South Bay Fire Chief from 1999 to 2004. He was the last fire chief in the district here before we hired CAL FIRE. Nothing against CAL FIRE, trust me. We've been very happy with the job you guys are doing. But I just did want to give acknowledgement. I thought that I might be able to get somebody from his family to come, but he moved up to Washington, and that's where he passed. So unfortunately, nobody was able to come. But I just wanted to express our appreciation as the district to Chief Pickens again. So if we could just have a moment of silence for him, I'd appreciate it. Okay, thank you, everybody. And then with that, I guess we're going to move on to item 7B, which is a review of the approved water rate increase scheduled for July 1, 2019. The presentation is by the Water Rate Study Group, Rob Miller, Richard Margetson, and Ron Munns. And I know Ron's unable to be here this evening. He did send us an email and expressed his regret and for not being able to be here. So am I turning it over to Rob or to, well, you're just there to...
I'm back up. Mr. Chair, both of us. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So you're doing the presentation and Richard's just chiming in when needed. Okay.
Yes, my name is Rob Miller, and pleased to be here with Richard Margetson to talk about water rates and give an update on our analysis of the performance of your water fund over the last year. For those of you who may not know us, just a brief background into the three members of our working group. Ron Munns, who couldn't be here tonight, is a longtime local utility expert, did a lot of rate setting for the city of San Luis Obispo for several decades before joining the county as their utilities manager. So a long history there of successful water rate management. Richard Margetson has been involved in the financial elements of the district's operations for many years, and knows the budget, the reserves, and the inner workings of our financial process very well. And then I'm the district engineer and have been so for about 20 years, and have been involved in many different rate studies over that period of time, and very familiar with our infrastructure and our needs going forward for capital improvements. So thank you for coming tonight. There's been a number of discussions on this topic, including a recent joint meeting between the Utilities Advisory Committee and the Financial Advisory Committee. So I'm going to keep this executive level here and maybe not get too far into the weeds, but certainly Richard and I are available to answer detailed questions. So first I wanted to rewind back to our rate increase in 2017 to cover what the goals were at that time. And our rates were fairly stable at that time. We were covering all of our operating costs and our administration costs, but we were light when it came to funding our needs for capital projects. We have both some older infrastructure and some water supply needs as part of our groundwater basin situation that were not being fully addressed back in 2017. So at that point, we established a few goals to continue to provide for the operations needs and the administrative needs, but also to provide for those critical projects that were necessary to sustain our water supply and to update our aging infrastructure. So those were the stated goals at the time. So the board had taken a number of actions, and we had many different policy issues that we tackled, which we won't have to re-tackle tonight, which is a good thing. And the first thing that we did back in 2017 was adopted a 3-step water rate increase. And I'll go briefly back through what that approval was. That went all the way through the Prop 218 process. It was approved, and the first 2 rate increases were implemented, and the third is scheduled to take effect in a few weeks here in July. And at that time, we had transitioned a good portion of our property tax revenue from the water fund, since our water utility only serves about half of the community, into more general benefits for the community, and about 50% remains in the water fund, or $120,000 per year. There's no change to that being proposed this evening. And the board also established a policy of eventually phasing out that source of revenue, but no further action's been taken on that ultimate goal. And then finally, we clarified our annual reserve goals based on all the projects we had hoped to accomplish at the time. And our target was to net out about $900,000 per year for either socked away as a capital reserve or to actually accomplish projects. So often you'll hear phrases tonight like net revenue or capital reserve. And what we mean by that is, after operating and administrative expenses are paid, how many dollars we have every year to either fund projects in that year or to add to our capital reserve to fund them in future years. So those two together comprise our net revenue. And we had this target of $900,000 that we set back in 2017.
For the end of for the third year of the increase.
Right, I'll display that here briefly.
Can everybody in the audience see, or do we need to turn that light off?
Okay.
Can you see? I just wanted to ask. Okay.
Great, thank you. You can even stare at my screen if you're behind me. So this is the rate increase as it was proposed back in 2017. And reflecting on what Richard just mentioned, you can see there in the middle column, fiscal year 17-18, that's last year, where we had our first rate increase. And then here in July of 2018, we had the second rate increase. And in the middle, highlighted sort of in a bold white, are our current rates. And at the very bottom, we see the target revenues, the net revenues that we were hoping to achieve in each of these fiscal years. So in fiscal year 17-18, we hope to hit at least $500,000 in net revenue. This year that we're about to complete, we had hoped to hit $700,000, and our ultimate goal was to hit $900,000 of net revenue. Now, you'll notice that when we adjusted these rates, we made sure that not only did we adjust the upper tiers where the water use patterns are higher, but we significantly adjusted the lower tiers to make sure we had good stability of revenue. And so even if folks do reduce their water use under this rate structure, the district will continue to receive a stable source of revenue, both in the base rate that's applied to every meter, no matter what you use in terms of water, and then in some of those lower tiers, we bump those up to make sure that as the community conserved, we'd have enough capital to do what we needed to do. And it's been very successful. So if you apply the previous rates to a year-over-year analysis of the additional dollars that the average customer will spend on water, we prepared this table to sort of bring this home to you. And this can be a little confusing, so I'm going to spend a minute describing it. So again, there was 3 years of rate increases. At the top there is 17-18, 2 years ago, and then the current fiscal year that we're in is 18-19, and then the planned rate increase that starts this July is at the bottom row, 19-20. And so in that first year, when we did a rate increase, depending on how much water you consumed on average, your water rates went up on an annual basis, taken over an average for the whole year. There's 2 different customer levels of water use, and I provided those 2 so you could see the difference. A customer using an average of 8 CCF bi-monthly is our most common customer. So when you look at how many bills we sent out for that year in each category, that's our most common bill that gets sent out. And then we looked at 12 CCF because That's more indicative of like a family, a full family, 3-4 people using that much water. And so in 17-18, we had a significant jump in rates. And if you were using 8 CCF, your bills went up, if you take it over the entire year, about $156 for that year. Of course, you can divide that by 12 and get, $13 or $14 a month is how much you paid extra in that first rate increase. And of course, that goes up when you use more water, up to $204 per year in 17-18 if you're using 12 CCF. So in the next year, we locked in those rates, and we saw another rate increase. It was more modest in that second year. But again, folks saw, and this started last July of 2018, if you were using 8 CCF, you saw an additional $78 a year increase if you were using 8 and 102 for 12. So those, compound, and together they comprise a little over, $230 or so. So the rate increase, the third and final rate increase that is planned but not yet implemented, is for the year 2019-20, which happens in July of this year. And if that does go into effect as planned, folks will see an additional $84 a year increase in their water bills if they're using 8, or $108 per year if they're using 12. So that just gives you a sense for what the annual impact will be on your average customer as these rates take effect. So this is a snapshot as to what the result of the rate increase has been. And what we found is that often when you implement a rate increase, people simply begin to purchase less water, and the revenues that you had hoped to achieve, you did not achieve. So that's not occurred here in this community, because most people had fully retrofitted as part of the wastewater project. We had already adjusted to the drought condition. So water use levels were fairly low, perhaps without further retrofitting, perhaps near a minimum with our current behavior out in the community. So we didn't see a lot of reduction in sales. In fact, we saw a small uptick as people responded to some rainfall. So here in the current fiscal year, we're projecting forward as to where we're going to end up. And we think we're going to raise somewhere between 2.9 and 3 million, maybe even a little bit more than that by the time we get to the end of this month. We won't know that until we get to the end of the month. And that includes the property tax revenue. And if you're wondering where that money goes, here's a quick breakdown of how our budget functions this year. Of that $3 million of revenue, we have expenses just to operate the system of about 1.3 million, but a portion of that is to do some of the smaller capital projects like a water meter replacement project. We have some debt service that will finally drop off in 2034. We're about halfway through that, and that's about $280,000 a year. And then we fund a significant fraction of administration of the district, and that's about $450,000. So all told, our expense side was a little over $2 million, somewhere between 2 and 2.1. So when you look at the revenue that was collected and the expenses, we were able to achieve a net revenue this fiscal year of between 0.9 and 1 million. And if I flip back, you can see that with the middle column there, we expected to receive at least 700,000. So we've done better. Water sales remain robust. Expenses have remained in check, and it resulted in net revenues that hit our ultimate target of 900,000. That's what we were targeting for next fiscal year, but we were able to achieve that this fiscal year. And we also have a pretty significant and growing capital reserve available from previous years of operations. And so our conclusion, and I'll go over some of the projects here in a second, is that within the next 5 years, we can fund all our programmed capital projects, even if we have some year-over-year inflation in our operating costs. So to go year by year for each of the years that we implemented this rate increase, in 2017 and 18, it was a very, very low expense year. We did very few projects. Operations costs were kept to a very low level. not a lot of what we would call heavy maintenance, recoatings, and that sort of thing. So we really had a very low expense here, and it resulted in net revenues that audited net revenues hit just over 900,000, even in 2017-18. So we had a very good year.
And the target was 500,000.
And the target was 500,000. Projecting forward to this year, the target was 700,000. Now we had some more things on the expense side this year, but we're still able to exceed our ultimate target of 900,000 in this fiscal year. So 2 years in a row now we've hit the target. And then in 1920, if the rate increase is taken that's currently approved, we will see an additional approximately $300,000 of revenue. So we'd actually be up to 1.2 million estimated net revenue, which, as you can see from the target, which is 900,000, it substantially exceeds that target. Now, reflecting briefly on our capital improvement plan, and this is really a combination of both addressing operational needs in the system, replacing older infrastructure, and looking at our water supply situation. So I just wanted to go through the highlight of projects, and these are the projects that are generally programmed over the next 5-6 years. Now, some of these, because of environmental review or permitting, they may actually slip a little bit, so we might not get to all of these within that 5-year horizon. But this is what we project if we did everything we've set out to do in these 5 years. So the first is to complete our water meter replacement program. We've been working diligently on that for a number of years. And this is the year where we hope to complete it. $75,000 have been budgeted. Our SCADA program, which is a supervisory control system that allows computerized monitoring of our water infrastructure, that's also being shared with our drainage fund. And so that's about $190,000. That's in our budget for this year. The big ticket item is a water supply project we call the Program C Well. And depending on the final site that's selected for that project, we're recommending a budget of $2 million. That may actually come down a little bit if we have the other purveyors participate in the cost of that project, but we feel $2 million is a conservative estimate to complete it. We have a couple of different water yard improvement projects, a new storage facility, a generator storage facility that we're working on, 2 projects, and those add up to about $230,000. Those will be hopefully complete this year. And then we had another water supply project at 8th Street that we thought was going to cost us a little over $300,000, but we've been recently notified that we ranked very highly for an integrated regional water management grant. And it looks like we're going to get about $230,000 if we can be patient on that project. That's another item on, I think it's on your consent agenda. We can go all the way out to bid, but if we can wait till early next year, we can get about $230,000 worth of grant funds to help with that project. We have a significant pipeline project to connect our South Bay well to what we call the main zone. That's about $500,000. And then we had a number of water distribution projects, primarily pipelines, that help with the circulation in our system, take care of some older infrastructure, and those add up to about $1.4 million. So all told, you're in that $4 to $5 million range, depending on how these projects unfold. So one of the things that we pointed out both to the joint committee we've talked about in previous meeting is what's happening in the future. We do have quite a significant amount of asbestos cement, a very common water main product that was put in 50s, 60s, 70s, and we have a lot of that pipeline. On a replacement value basis, perhaps about $10 to $15 million of it. I've estimated it at $13 million. Now, during the construction of the wastewater project, we did do a very good job finding the weak spots in that asbestos cement pipeline, and which was pretty much at all the places where the sewer was quite deep and at intersections, and we had quite a number of breakages during that period of time. Once the project was buttoned up, things have been quite tight, and operations staff has identified that the age-related replacements are no longer on the first priority because we just haven't had that year-to-year leak repair cost that we forecasted in previous years. So how long will those asbestos cement pipelines last? It's really not known. They could last decades. And usually what happens in these types of projects is they would be done, a few blocks at a time, and over time, as we identify sections that are requiring more maintenance or where we're having more leaks. But the ultimate age of those pipelines is really not a known quantity in terms of how long they'll last. But we can say we're not forecasting immediate replacement requirements in the short term for those asbestos cement pipelines. And so in a summary, we have a number of different opinions, I'm sure, that will be in the room. Our working group seeks to primarily provide the right technical information for you to be able to make your decision. If you elect not to take any action, the rate increase that's already approved will automatically take effect in July. So in order to do anything different than that, you'd actually have to take an action, if that makes sense. And so our view is that if you continue to target the net revenue that we had previously recommended, which is $900,000 per year, if that continues to be your target, which we think is appropriate for the capital projects that we're currently planning, we have met that target with our current rates, and you don't need to take that increase for next year. If you do choose to let that increase take effect, you will generate an additional approximate $300,000, and you will be seeing net revenues of about $1.2 million if that is your decision. But anyway this comes out, we do recommend that we review this regularly, perhaps every 2 years. So whatever you do choose, we'd be happy to participate in that to make sure we're keeping pace with inflation, projects as they currently sit, and staying on top of this issue. I did want to provide a minute for Richard to give a summary of our current reserve funds, because I think this is germane, because many of those funds now have been pretty well stocked. So Richard, do you want to give us a summary?
Rob talked about the $1.25 million in capital reserve. The district also has a vehicle replacement fund that's fully funded at this point, correct? General contingency reserve, which is now being funded out of the budget, out of current revenues at $57,000 a year. At the end of next fiscal year, we'll have over $500,000. The rate group that Rob and Ron and I were on two times ago, established a rate stabilization reserve. That currently is funded at a higher level than what was recommended. And the purpose of that reserve, and that's at $158,000, the purpose of that reserve is if there's a fluctuation in rates, that they were to go down, revenue was to go down for some reason, there's additional conservation, that's a fund you could pull from to balance the budget or balance the revenue stream in any year that the board would decide to take that. The Basin Management Reserve, Rob says, is fully funded, and the Water Conservation Reserve at $59,000 is, I guess, fully funded. So right now you're talking about $2.1 million in reserves at this moment in time. Next year's budget has a number of capital improvement projects in the budget to the tune of about $1.4 million. And in your staff report in the budget section of tonight's meeting states that after those projects are completed, with the revenue that will come in, the draw from reserves that would need to be taken to accomplish those, at the end of the fiscal year, your reserve balance will actually go up from the 1.25 to about 2.45. So you'll accomplish $1.4 million next year in capital improvement projects, plus the items that are in the O&M part of the budget, which is the $75,000 for the meter replacements and about $100,000 of other district internal projects. Those will all be fully funded, and your reserve balance will go up. On top of that, there's a substantial portion of the general checking account that is attributable to water. And I know finance and staff and that are eventually going to get to reconciliation of what's in there. So the 2.1 is not all that the water fund has to draw on in the future for projects, those unforeseen disasters, those type of things. On top of the revenue streams we're talking about, in the next 2 to 3 years, I think one of them is going to take 4 years, the water fund will be repaid about $125,000 additional from the loans that they gave to Bay Ridge and Visadero. So that will be revenue coming in that could be put into reserves, probably capital outlay, I would say. And like Rob said, 75,000 of the meter replacement will drop off the budget next year, so that won't be a line item. It'll come up again somewhere in the future when they start, all over again. But the other thing I wanted to mention, because we did some research on this, your customers, there's a portion of your customers that are hurting. Increased rates for the sewer, trash rates are going up this year, water rates are going up or have gone up in the past. About 1,500 door hangers will have been put on properties this year in your district, and we send out about 16,600 bills. Yeah, so almost 10% of your customers are getting a door hanger, and by year's end, somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000 will have been collected in penalties. And the way the penalties in this district work is, of the amount billed, if you're late on paying your bill, 10% is added. So if you have a $100 bill, your late fee for non-payment on time is $10. So $25,000 to $30,000 represents billed revenue of $250,000 to $300,000 out of a $3 million revenue stream. So more than 10% of your customers are paying late fees. So we don't believe you need to take this increase. I can say it's stronger than Rob can, and we're totally confident in this recommendation. It's unanimous between the three of us. We've always had unanimous recommendations, and we will be available in the future, hopefully, to reevaluate this in a couple years and see where we're at. But I think at this point, we'll wait and see if there's any questions.
Thanks, Richard. It's always nice to be able to report a positive fiscal situation for your home district. So,
Yes.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah, I would like just a reminder of if there's a definition of an enterprise fund, because we cannot, it's my understanding that we cannot generate more revenue than it takes to operate this district, the water district, and I don't know exactly what that means.
I can take a shot at that. Certainly the concept of an enterprise fund is that we provide water at cost, and we account for our costs as part of that fund, and we don't just use it for miscellaneous purposes because we're a special district. We have to have a purpose for those dollars. And so the idea is that if you do have net revenues, that those aren't just used to build this large fund and apply to other things. Those have to go back into your water infrastructure.
I was going to have Roy answer that. Do you have anything to add to what Rob said?
Yeah, just speaking from a different angle, because I don't do engineering and I don't do math. Basically, you can't spend water revenues on anything but the water fund. You can loan it out as long as there's a reasonable likelihood that it'll be paid back within the time that you need it. For example, if you have a large capital improvement fund and you project you aren't going to get to a project for another 4 years that's going to need a few million of it, you could loan out a portion of that as long as it's reasonable to expect that it's paid back to the fund in time to be used for the fund purpose. A lot of places don't do that because it's an administrative headache. You have to track it, and right, you've got to deal with your constituency. Here in Los Osos,
what Rob said is correct, basically.
Yeah, but a lot of people think of an enterprise fund where there's a wall, the money can't flow out. money can flow in. You do spend
Right.
currently still the $120,000 of ad valorem tax revenue that you could legally spend elsewhere. In many jurisdictions, there are what you would think of here as administrative costs. They're properly and legally paid for out of the water fund that you aren't addressing aggressively like some other jurisdictions do.
Right.
And so those are the only considerations I wanted to add.
Yeah, so do we have any other questions before
Yes.
we go to public comment here?
So why did we target the 900,000? Is that it's still, and do you consider that's still sufficient?
So the reason we targeted that level is we had a capital improvement program, and we knew we had near-term targets of about 5 million over 5 to 6 years. And so that level of funding accomplished all the things that we knew we needed in that short term. Beyond that, we wanted to continue to build a capital reserve for those future age-related replacements that we don't really have a schedule for, but we wanted robust funding for those as well. And so in the early years, in 15 and 16, we were targeting a smaller amount, but we felt like it was insufficient given the age of the system and our short-term needs. So we settled on 900,000 as being robust funding for what we need, and we do think that's sufficient.
And part of it was the requirements that we thought we were going to have to pay for the basin management plan.
Right.
And 900 was the goal for the third year, but to keep in mind, the rate structure that's in now, that 900 additional over what was garnered 2 years ago will continue into eternity till there's either another water rate increase or a decrease. Decrease somewhat each year by inflation, cost of increase for employee salaries, those type of things. But there's a revenue stream into the future above and beyond O&M, debt service, and administration. And the year that we took this analysis on to establish the new rate structure, we actually banked over $300,000 that fiscal year in net revenues. So it wasn't that when we decided and came up with this new rate structure that we weren't funding O&M, debt service, and administration. We just, when the basin management issues came forward and some of the other capital improvement projects that had been on the waiting list for 15 years, some of the projects George was talking about when we got the iBank loan the first time. Those are now going to be funded, and we've established the following year a 900,000 increase in revenue into the future. We didn't want to take it all in 1 year. That's why we tiered it up from 500 to 700 to 900, and we just hit the goals earlier because we didn't anticipate that there wouldn't be as much additional conservation.
So unfortunately, I had to miss the joint meeting, but I'm understanding you believe the current rate structure is sufficient. They recommended raising it, is that correct?
Yeah, and I can
The
give
staff
you...
report, the staff report has that in there, and just let me in.
Sure.
It says there was 3 recommendations from the joint committee. One is to continue to allocate 50% of the property tax revenues to the water fund, which is what we're doing now. And then secondly, to revisit the water rates at least every 2 years, which was the second. And then the third was to implement the water rate increase on July 1st, 2019.
So
those
the
were
joint
3
committee
recommendations.
recommends implementing it, but you're saying we could stay where we're at?
Yeah, I mean, our perspective was based on the original goals that we set forth to achieve. And in the joint committee, we provided an objective look at our situation, and their judgment was a little different than ours. We said 900,000 was the target. We've hit it, and that's as far as we went with our statements. And so it was really the committee's, at that time, their consensus that they wanted to go beyond it, but that's
because we were originally tasked, part of what we were originally tasked with was coming up with 2.1 million over a 3-year period, and eventually getting to that $900,000 level into eternity or into the future. We've 900,000 the first year, 900,000 this year, 900,000 next year is 2.7 million. at a goal of 2.1. That's part of our recommendation is where it's at.
No, thanks.
Okay, any other questions before we go to public comment? I would like to reiterate one thing in the staff report before we go to public comment.
Sure.
The last sentence. The above rate analysis was completed at no cost to the district through the efforts of the volunteer working group, so I want to thank you three guys for the work you did. Okay, with that, we'll go to public comment. 3 minutes is your limit, and please state your name for the record. No public comment?
Julie Tacker, and I was at that joint meeting and thought that,
Could you speak up because I can't hear you?
Maybe
I
I
don't know if it's
don't
the
have it close
microphone or
enough.
what.
how's that, guys? Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, so I was at the joint meeting and thought that both committees had thoroughly discussed it. I didn't know there'd even be a question tonight because I felt that everyone was on that same page. But my concern, one thing about that joint meeting is the 50% of the ad valorem property tax. We could use that in a different way and maybe not have to perhaps tax as much as we do over at the fire department. So benefiting the whole community, not half the community that's already benefited from that tax for decades. So I think that factors in to some sort of reimbursement. I honestly, I think you need the money because more things are being identified by our new utilities manager that weren't caught in the past. And because I've also watched so many 218 processes, I worry that you put the next one at risk. If you don't take this money now, and in 2 years you have to come back to the community and ask for it, they can tell you no. And if you put yourself in that position, the people that are here tonight that may be telling you to stay the course versus go to the next level might then be fighting you if you do go to the next level in a year or two or whatever it's necessary. I do think that an increase will decrease water usage further, and that's a benefit to the basin and us all. So I think I just want you to look at the larger picture because it's broad, and that it could benefit by taking the next step. It benefits the whole district. Perhaps you take that ad valorem property tax and put that somewhere else in next year's budget or the year after, and these rates would be accumulated towards the projects that we haven't implemented. So
Thank
I
you.
hope you follow what I said if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Hi, Elaine Watson. This is the second time I've watched this presentation, and frankly, I'm very impressed with the accomplishment of this structure that they've put together. It's gotten us from where we want to be in two rate increases. And you know, given the expertise of these guys and the things that they've looked at and been studying for several years now, I am more inclined to take their recommendation. And as Julie was talking, I'm wondering in regard to her question about having to do a second 218, it was my understanding that if you don't take this rate increase this time and you decide in a couple of years that you need to, that you do not have to go back for the 218, that this possibility is in place. Is that correct? No? Okay. I'm mistaken about that. But in any case, Richard mentioned that there are a lot of people in this community we have a very mixed community, financially mixed, and there are a lot of people in this community who are having trouble financially with, lots of things. And so if the funds aren't needed at this point, and it looks like we're well set into the future, and I'm sure that they've talked to Jose and the other people that are involved here, and looking out at the future of what projects are going to be needed, it sounds like we're in good stead. So I would hope that you do not take the rate increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Next speaker.
I'm Vita Miller, and I don't live in the CSD Water District. I live in Golden State. I wish we Golden State users had the opportunity to comment like you folks do and have such great detailed reports. And ours are always in writing and don't usually understand what it's all about. But anyway, I was going to ask the question whether this increase could be put on hold. And apparently the answer is no. I mean, if you were to need it in the next couple of years, you can't go back and then implement this third increase. Is that true? I mean, do you already know that legally? That's a fact. Okay. I wondered about that one. I have spoken to a couple of people that lived in the CSD water, and they're not able to be here or for whatever reason, and they felt like if the money isn't needed, I know this is what they said, that they did not think the rate increase should go through. And the way you gave that description of an enterprise fund, I don't understand how you justify taking the money and then seemingly put it wherever or in some kind of holding pattern. If that's a legal thing, I don't understand how you can do that. So, yeah, I'm going to speak in favor of not implementing this increase. And just because I do know a lot of people are hurting, and I'm hearing from people more and more who are saying when they retire or when they're on a fixed income, they're not going to be able to live in this community any longer. I've heard that quite a bit.
Thank you. Lynette.
Lynette Tornotsky. I was wondering if we could get some information on if the ad valorem property tax money was taken out of water. I mean, it's obviously put in there and it only benefits half the community, but if that amount of money, what is it? If it's taken out, what happens? And could we get an average on what it costs to repair those old pipes that break? I can remember the one on 16th Street during the sewer days. It was quite a nightmare with a huge flood at the bottom. And it was quite interesting to watch them repair the pipes, but I'm thinking they just put a sort of pipe in the middle between the two rotten pipes, and it was kind of like, well, how much is this going to cost if we have another break like that? Suppose we have an earthquake. What will it cost to fix it if that happens? So I don't have an opinion on whether to take it or not, but I think we need the information as if we take that money out or we have a huge break, what do we do then?
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. And Rob, you want to answer the two questions?
Yeah, a couple of reflection on those questions. So if we choose to completely divert the property tax base away from the fund, then we wouldn't have, and I'll just see if I have that on a slide, I think it's about, $120,000 a year is what's currently going to the water fund from property taxes. So to put that in the context of the pending rate increase, which is about $280,000, if you were to completely divert that 120, that's a little less than half of the rate increase that's pending before us in July. And the question on a pipe break, a lot of it does depend.
Could you back up to the
Sure.
chart of the actual revenues that are projected?
That one?
The rates that were projected.
There.
That one.
That one.
Yeah, so if we took out the 120 in 2019, 2020, we'd still be above $1 million estimated. Because that 1.2 includes the ad valorem? That's what I'm.
It does. It includes it, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, includes it. I think there was a question on pipe breaks and what the cost would be. Of course, it depends heavily on where that occurs. I mean, it could be as little as 5,000 to 10,000 for an isolated break. It could be a lot more than that if it's a significant break. Then there's a question on the legalities of the pending rate increase. And if you did go up to 1.2 million, I don't see a legal issue there. You would just have to earmark those dollars for the water fund, for capital projects over time. You'd just be collecting it at a rate that's faster than the $900,000 per year that we had previously targeted. So that's, I think, the key message there. And as far as under Prop 218, whether you could delay it, our thought was no, that if you chose not to take this at some point in the future, if you went for...
Roy already shook his head no, so.
Okay, good. We'll take that as last.
I like hearing it, though. Can he finish?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I have a slightly different take on that.
Yeah, go ahead, His.
Let's let our attorney
It's
talk
going to be
about it.
complicated, I'm sorry, and I didn't interject, because basically, I thought you guys did a really good job of including a generally accurate presentation of the legal issues. This is mostly a policy discussion. The way the law works, when you set rates under Prop 218, you can cover up to the next 5 years. So certainly, you can't postpone this third rate for any time after that 5-year period is up. Arguably, you could postpone it and revisit it and implement it before the 5 years is up. But that was a nice legal word I used, arguably. So I actually think if we go to court over that, we win. But then we took all that $120,000 and we spent it on
legal
my successor,
fees.
yeah.
That's why, when he said no, that's why I wanted to have him step.
Thank you.
I have a question. So that 5 year starts from when we implemented the increase, which was 2017?
Yeah, whatever date the vote took place.
So in theory, we could, in the next 3 years, take the third increase if we needed to, but you're worried if we could get sued and then pay legal fees?
Yeah, my opinion, if I were a judge, and I'm not, is that if you wanted to take action and say, we're going to postpone this already approved increase until next year, you could do that and probably win if we get sued over it. You would certainly not be able to delay it past that 5-year time frame.
And I think Rob, Ron, and I have been on all 4 of the rate groups. I think, yeah, the 3 of us have been on all. And I think the most protests, I don't think we've ever, when it's gone out to 218, ever been more than 100 protests out of 2,750 customers. They pretty much, and then this last one was the most substantial increase we've ever recommended, cumulatively. And it was less than 100 protests.
Yeah, I think the most that we've had, my recollection, it was in the mid-100s at the most, yeah.
Like that. So,
This was a slide that I don't remember in the presentation from the Joint Committee.
we added it.
Ron
Because
added this
we talked about meeting the targets. No, it wasn't. This one was not.
Ron added this one just recently.
Yeah, because we talked about meeting the targets of 5, 7, and 9 early even. We're at the 9 early, but we went way over the revenue projections.
Yeah, and in fairness, that 2017 year was a very low expense year. I mean, if you look at the things that were happening in the field, it was bare bones in that year. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons revenues are fat. We just had money that we didn't spend, and we're in good shape. It really is nice to have the district this strong across the board.
And the year before, like I said, we had net revenues of over 300,000, and we added rate increase that we thought would generate 500. It generated more than 500. You add that to what the buffer was already in net revenues over expenses. So that's how you get to the 915 for the first year.
Well, I think you answered all the questions, Rob, so
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
let's get on to discussion with the committee, or pardon me, with the board. So who wants to lead off here?
I'll add a little bit. I just, want to give my thanks and appreciation to the rate study group. You guys did a great job, very clear and concise. I think it's great that we've been able to achieve these revenues. It seems like we maybe had a little bit of maybe some conservative approaches and some forecasting, which is totally, you want to err on that side, definitely. And since we're not seeing the reduction in usage, I really don't see the necessity of raising rates one more time.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to see us pause the rate increase. So I don't know, how to, I think we hit our target. And I would like to revisit it in a year, though. And
That's fair enough.
because we should be,
Well, we can make that direction to staff. That's not a problem, if that's what you want to do.
yeah, we should look at it next year and see what just because we do have a long list of capital improvements, I believe, and
That's assuming you three guys want to revisit it in a year.
I think we are, but we got to hear him say it on camera because he's retiring at the end of the year.
He's still living in the district.
He still lives here.
You can turn my water off if I don't come. No, it's...
And the three of us had committed to that in our last conference call, that we would be available in the future.
All right, thank you.
Well,
Okay.
and those capital improvement projects are taken into account in these forecasts. So
They are.
that's why I feel comfortable.
And there's one thing about those, we've moved a lot of them up in the past year. The
good.
loops, we've been talking about those since 2005 at least, when I first got on the board. The South Bay well and getting that into the zone, that's been moved up. That's a $500,000 project that all of a sudden advanced in priority. But I understand that because I'm the one that's always griping about why is the cost of water so much higher there? And we're doing something about that. I feel good about our ability to meet our capital improvement goals, really do.
right, it's just in a year from now, if we're able to, sometimes they get pushed out, but if we're able, it'll look different, and it'll be good to look at a snapshot in time a year from now,
I think
Yeah.
so.
and
My
then
only-
reassess.
The only concern I would have based on what you just said, we don't know the cost at this point for the program Seawell, so that's the big unknown at this point. So revisiting it in a year, I think makes sense because we'll be further along on the program Seawell at that point in time.
Hopefully so.
Do we have an
Hopefully
update
so.
on that?
Yeah.
I know.
Okay. All right, so do we need a motion or how do we need to go?
We do
on
need a
this?
motion. I move that we,
Revisit it in a year?
no, I'm not sure the right word, arrest. Yeah, no rate increase. Well, I move that we postpone the rate increase, that
Defer
we
it?
do not, or we defer the rate increase, that we do not increase the rates this year. We take another look at it next year.
Okay, we defer it and revisit it in a year. Is that your motion? The intent?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Yeah, go for it.
We're in a race.
Matthew seconded.
No, I think it was Chad.
Any more discussion? Okay, seeing none.
Yay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. All right. Thank you for all your comments. Okay, we'll move on to item 7C, which is our budget hearing item here. So it's the public hearing to adopt. Public hearing, 7C, please. 7C, public hearing to adopt a proposed fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. So, Renee?
The budget's before you.
Could you guys please be quiet if you're in here? If you want to chat, go outside, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The budget's in front of you. We sent it out to the public, we sent it to the board. We did revise the wastewater fund and the fire fund. We removed the ad valorem property tax from, staff was requesting it for it to go to wastewater, and we do not need it there. We've had a conversation with our auditor, and apparently between the auditor and our bond counsel, they feel that that negative balance that we had has been removed. So wastewater will not need the property tax. So we have revised the fire fund to receive that additional 15.5%. And so everybody has those revised versions in front of them. They're on the table, they're at the back. So that's the only revision to the budget. In the budget, under water, we had an extra line, an extra column, one for what the budget was gonna look like with the rate increase, and one without. So all you would need to do, and prepared a motion for you for how you would make the motion, as far as, since you guys just decided to not take the rate increase.
And, just to add to that, the Financial Advisory Committee has looked at this multiple times,
Yes.
and they made the unanimous recommendation for the board to adopt the budget.
Yes.
Okay, questions before we go to public comment? Okay, public comment on the budget.
Julie Tacker, and I'm afraid that just removing the item that, and I've grabbed the wrong book, just removing the item for the ad valorem property tax is concerning to me. The auditor and the financial advisor have a feeling that it was resolved through the refi. You don't get a feeling of $114,000. That's got to be on paper somewhere. It's got to be accounted for. So what was asked at the Finance Committee on Monday was, how did the debt occur? Where did the money come from to pay the debt? And how's it going to get paid back? So this feeling that the accountants all have doesn't sit well with me. I want to know where the money came from to pay for the studies that were associated with the debt. And then through the refi, if there's $114,000 that got wiped out, that has to go back to the fund that it came from. So I'm not comfortable with your board adopting this until you have answers to that questions.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the budget item? Richard?
Richard Margetson, the big one was just settled a few minutes ago. But on the issue Julie was talking about, I think the board needs complete clarification on that issue. Just having the auditor and the bond counsel say that it was taken care of, you need to see the accounting, because if it was wiped off, then there's got to be an adjusting entry someplace. There's got to be. I think you need more documentation. The rest of the budget's been beat to death, but now that the water issue is solved, I think you're okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close it and bring it back to the committee. I would just like to make a clarification for those of you who are new here on the committee. Under law, we have to adopt a budget or make a continuing resolution by July 1. So the option here is either to have a continuing resolution or to adopt this budget with allowing us to do an adjustment at a later date. So that's why I'm recommending that we go ahead and adopt it, and then we can make an adjustment at a later date.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely, the auditor will be doing an adjustment the journal entry and such in our next audit. I do believe the Director Womack did have a conversation with our auditor as well. I don't know if she wants to add anything, but correct. We could leave it the way it is without the supplement, and then during the mid-year, we'd know by then, you'd have your written report from them, and then at mid-year, we'd make the adjustment and just switch it.
Well, we could even do it before then, once we get clarification, which would be my goal. I just don't want to do a continuing
Yes, no, I agree.
resolution.
There's no reason for that. Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
So like Mike said, I did talk to the auditor because I was. Take Vicky's, please. It was making weird noises and turning itself off, and now it's dead. Okay. So I called up the auditor because I had that same concern. Because I heard different stories of where the debt came from, and if it, what was the original? The auditor believed that it came from,
Engineering fees.
yeah, if his engineering fees, it shouldn't have disappeared, but Adam seemed to think that, we had a bond reserve fund and monies were taken out of that, and he thought the wastewater was used for that. But I'm not as clear on it as I would like to be either. So, but I guess I'd just add that I had that conversation with Adam, so.
So we'll go with everybody agrees with Marshall's idea that we just leave the budget as it was submitted, and then we'll make the adjustment later after the report a full report from the auditor.
Well, I think we need to clarify this because there's,
Yeah. Yes.
I really do.
All right.
Oh, that would explain a lot. Oh, there you go. Okay. All right, well, as Chair of the Financial Advisory Committee, I'll make the motion to go ahead and approve the budget with the understanding that we will do further research and analysis and adjustment once we clarify that one item.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor?
You have to
Do we
adopt the
resol-
resolution.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my fault. As soon as I said that, I knew that. Okay, can you call for the vote, or call the vote, please?
President O'Hills.
Yes.
Director Womack.
Yes.
Director Forkard.
Yes.
Director Millage.
Yes.
Vice President Cesenia.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, with that then, we'll go for public comment for items not on the agenda.
Hi, Emily Miggins, and I am here to throw out a comment and a kind of a prop for Renee, our manager. So about 6 weeks ago in my living room, I found out about a county haz mitigation plan because the chief principal was the childhood best friend of my husband, who happened unrelated to the plan to be staying in our home. And he said one of the few CSD managers, very few, the only responsive CSD managers was Renee to the call out for input on the countywide haz mitigation plan for things. And we went to the meeting, and I dragged Tom Wright from the local Fire Safe Council to that meeting, where a couple fire departments were there, not ours. But anyway, he had nothing but really great things to say about you, Renee, and your input and feedback and professionalism, etc. So it was great to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Vita?
Hi, this is Vita Miller. And a member of the public who couldn't be here tonight asked me a question this past week, and I don't know if it's appropriate for you to answer questions, the public, but when the bond was what's the correct word? Re-adopted or
Refinanced.
Refinanced, thank you. I couldn't come up with that word. And I was here, I remember I was here the night the big presentation happened. And she was under the impression that when that happened, you rolled the old tax assessment from the original project, sewer, I'm talking about the sewer project, when it was going to be built, supposedly was going to be built at Tri-W, and we are being assessed for that you somehow rolled that into this new refinancing. And I said, I don't remember hearing that at all.
So I don't know if I'd use the term.
Wait.
Yeah, I didn't know whether it's appropriate. At some point, if I could get an answer or the public could get an answer, and I said, well, that'd be nice, but I hadn't heard of that.
Get away. That's not how.
Okay. Whatever.
Wait till all the public comments over.
Julie Tacker, and a couple of things that are not on the agenda that I would ask that you put on the agenda. One is the transparent reporting of compensation for board members. I've raised this issue before, thought that direction had been given to staff, and we're still not seeing that accounting with your warrants or with your financial reports each month. And I think that needs to come forward so that we can see that, and so the mistakes aren't made again, or they can be caught early. The other question that I have, and it's an agenda item for the future, it's related to the water shortage contingency plan. You have a portion of that on tonight's agenda on your consent calendar. So I don't know if you'll have a full discussion about it, but in reading that, it says that you'll have the stage discussion at a future agenda. But this agenda, the recommendation is to return leak funds, almost $17,000 to people that had leaks during stage 3. So if you're having a future discussion about what stage you're in or going to stay in, I don't know how you can have it both ways. You either were in stage 3 and these leaks can't be forgiven as per the policy, or you weren't in stage 3 or you're not in stage 3. And if you want to stay in stage 3, I just don't think you can give that money back. So I think these are companion items that should be heard together.
Thank you.
Richard Margetson. Now that the rate group is disbanded at this point until a further time, I can speak as a member of the public. One thing that we would like in the future, and I would hope that it could be accomplished by the next time we get together, is that we have some idea of what funds in the checking account are attributable to all of the funds. Not just the reserve amounts, but what's actually in the general checking account attributable to water. I'm pretty sure it's probably water and fire is the majority of it, but just if we had that in the future. And my opinion is, with the revenue stream that was put in place by the last rate structure and the net revenues that you're going to realize in the future, I'd be really surprised if there needs to be another rate increase in the next 5 years. It's my opinion.
Thank you. Any other public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay. Now you can answer the question.
Okay, so when we issued the bonds in 2002, the interest rate we were paying on the bonds was 5%. What we did was we reissued new bonds. Interest rates have come down quite a bit since then. So we reissued new bonds at 3.2%. We used that money from the reissue to pay off the old bonds. So they are done. And I find this stuff very exciting. If you have any questions, come after and ask me. If you want further clarifications, I love talking about it.
All right, thank you. So with that, then we'll move on to the administrative and committee reports, the fire department report. I see our chief's here today.
Good evening, Board of Directors and general members of the public. My name is George Huang. I'm a battalion chief with North Coast Cal Fire, along with Los Osos. For the month of April 21st to May 24th, your fire department ran 122 calls. 82 of those calls consisted of medical aids, 11 traffic accidents within the community, 4 fires that we kept small, 1 hazardous materials call, meaning someone left oil, etc., something that was abandoned that we cleaned up, 16 public assist, anywhere from helping with smoke detectors, someone that needs help getting to the bathroom, etc. That's what we're here for. And we had 7 false alarms. Give you a comparison for Pismo Beach, they also ran about 129 calls, so we both met the criteria and we both ran the equal amount of calls. Your Station 15 also conducted 48 inspections within the business inspections within the community. All passed. Everything looks good. So you'll see the fire department continuously go around the community, and you're going to see them greeting the members of your community. I would like to say congratulations to Carrie Young on May 13th. She was officially hired permanent with us, and it's a great addition along with everything that she's done. Thank you. And lastly, I just want to remind everyone that there is a new signal light being placed at South Bay Boulevard.
It's operational today.
And Napomo. I understand that, we're so used to driving through that area, and I've been to a few vehicle accidents already. So please, be cognizant in that area as there is a new signal light, and make sure you guys are paying attention to your situational awareness. All right?
So
end of report.
Definitely. It was weird to see it operating today, I have to say that.
Absolutely. Any questions for me? Yes, so currently we're going through the weed abatement process. So obviously letters have been mailed out to properties that are in violation. So please check your mailboxes and follow the instructions on the letter. If you have any questions or concerns, please, there's a telephone number at the very bottom. Follow those directions and we will answer your questions accordingly.
And now we have our own weed abatement ordinance now that we can implement.
Absolutely. So the fire department has gone around and inspected every single property within Los Osos. So just be cognizant that the firefighters are driving around and inspections have been completed. We actually completed the inspection 3 weeks prior to the actual due date just because of the fuels in the grass, but the due dates itself are still the same. So just be cognizant of that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Big props to that guy.
Okay, good. Can't interrupt. Okay, thank you. So we'll move to the sheriff's report. Thank you for sitting here for all that time. I appreciate it. I know that water rate stuff must have been exciting for you guys.
So exciting.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Michael Manueli, Commander, Sheriff's Coast Station. If I turn around and leave, I've been fighting something for a few days now. My voice is about ready to go.
I was wondering.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Good evening. I have your statistics for May 2019. For Los Osos, there were 526 calls for service compared to last year, which was 581. That's a drop of approximately 9%. Avila Beach had 111 calls for service. Cayucas had 157 calls for service. Cambria 323 and San Simeon 87. The Coast Station handled a total of 2,032 calls for service last month. From those calls for service, there were 62 reports generated compared to the previous year for the same time frame of 73. That's a drop of approximately 15%. Again, the Coast Station handled 198 calls for service the previous month. Some of those calls for service and reports break down to 7 calls for service regarding assault and battery, generating 6 reports. We had 1 road rage, where a subject brandished a firearm. Deputies were in the area. We got a good description from the victim, and we were able to locate and take that subject into custody as he was fleeing from the area. Deputies, there was a dispute over computer photos where the suspect choked out the victim. There was a choke out at the grocery store, victim choked out by his mother's boyfriend. Then we had a vehicle drive closely by a pedestrian. No contact was made. There were 33 disturbance calls. Some of those reports generated resulted in arrest for public intoxication, domestic violence restraining orders, and family disputes resulting in public intoxication arrest. There was one burglary reported and one report generated. This is kind of interesting. I feel sorry for this guy. He got double whammy that day. His vehicle was struck by a tree that fell, destroyed his windshield and his convertible roof. He fixed that with some kind of plastic, and in the process, somebody took the plastic off and took the camera that was left on the seat. There were 4 different types of thefts reported, generating 2 reports. 3 subjects went into one of our local stores, tried stealing some alcohol, and then somebody used a stolen credit card and purchased a large amount of items. We had one vandalism call. Somebody spray painted some swastikas in the pedestrian walkway going under South Bay Boulevard at Almoro to the school. No mail thefts. We had 9 phone scams reported. Somebody reported that they won $1 million. Of course, they had to pay $430 transaction fee. Thankfully, they didn't do it. We had 6 calls regarding Social Security. We're still in that tax season, and they're trying to hit those people who may not have paid taxes. Hey, this is the IRS. It's time to pay your bill. And then there was something about a caller saying that your Apple phone or your Apple computer is not working properly. We need to upgrade that, and we want some money. The victim says, I don't own a computer. We had 25 suspicious circumstances calls resulting in 4 different reports. Property found in a vacant house. Subject acting strangely, flailing his arms around, was later arrested for public intoxication. Then we had a suspicious subject going into a residence through the balcony. They called us up, thought a burglary was in progress. We located that subject, detained him, and through our investigation found out that he was supposed to be there. And going back to scams, they're not all phone scams. The Sheriff's Coast Station received its very own fax scam. It asks the business owner, I presume that's me, that I am pre-approved for $250,000, so I'm going on vacation. And that's my report.
Now you can rest your voice.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you for the report. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good month. 4th of July is coming, and we'll be ready. We're working closely with CAL FIRE and everything on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Utilities Department report.
Good evening, Board of Directors, members of the public. My name is Jose Acosta. I am your Utility Systems Manager. First off, on my report for the month of April, we'll report on the water production information for all the well sites. For the month of April, we produced approximately 14.2 million gallons of water. This equates to an average of about 474 gallons per day. This represents an increase in production from last year by approximately 6.24%. So that leads us into the next one, which is the gallons per day used per capita. And for the month of April, the residential customers use about 62.4 gallons per day per person. That's an increase from 59.7 gallons per day per person in April of 2018. We had been approximately about 50 gallons per day per person almost last year. And so that is an increase, but that also happened last April. I think what may happen is people get the rains and they start thinking that we're recovering from the drought and start using water again in the month of April. So just a reminder, we still need to conserve water, and watch our usage of the water as well. Next, we'll move on to the production and runtime hours by each well site. As you can see, Palisades well site produced about 1.6 million gallons, 8th Street 6.94, 10th Street 5.51. Just a quick explanation on those figures. As you can see, Palisades dropped off, 8th Street and 10th Street increased. We were having an issue with our SCADA computer that was causing the other well sites not to be able to run as much. So we had to rely on the big dogs to run and produce more water. As you can see, that correlates down below on the runtime hours as well for each well site. Water billing information, 57% of the district was billed for approximately 10.53 million gallons of water, and this was between the period of February 11th and April 9th of 2019, and this generated approximately $214,000 in revenue. Moving on to the utility department operations and maintenance tasks and facilities. The water distribution and treatment facilities, the crew continually does their daily, weekly, and monthly water quality sampling, analysis, and reporting. The monthly meter reading. They continue using the valve exercising machine, which we purchased this last fiscal year, and that has allowed them to be more efficient and exercising the valves. And again, this last month they discovered 3 valves that were stuck previously that they couldn't exercise, and with the machine they were able to break them free and get the proper exercising out of them. It's very important that we do exercise our valves for the need in emergency if we had to isolate something, and also for water quality if we had to divert for flushing and improve water quality. Groundskeeping at all well sites and around fire hydrants. We're also trying to make sure that we keep all weeds low, and Renee and I also made a few trips out to some sites and saw some issues and spoke to the crews about making sure we perform our weed abatement as well. He's no longer here, but he would send us those letters as well. Service line upgrade at 1391 4th Street. Continue the residential meter replacement program. They changed out 92 meters this past month. And staff attended a training for valve operation and maintenance and exam preparations during the month of April as well. At the drainage facilities, again, we're doing groundskeeping at Bay Ridge Green Space and at the Loma Lot. And the staff constructed awnings at our electrical panels that were newly installed at 8th Street, Nalmoro, and Don and Mitchell sites. Those were installed to ensure that the panels that we put up will be protected from the elements as well. The rainfall totals below, as you could see, for the calendar year between April of 2018 and March 2019, we had approximately 23 inches of rain. For the month of April so far, we only had 0.08 of an inch of rain. That concludes my report. Do I have any questions from the board?
Any questions?
Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to General Manager's report.
Good evening, Board of Directors. This is the General Manager's and Staff's activity report for the month of May. Admin, Water and Fire, as you are aware, have been working on the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget and items associated with the budget process, and staff submitted the final draft budgets to the Finance Advisory Committee at their June 3rd meeting. Management staff is currently working with Flocia on the employee MOU, and it was mentioned at one of our FAC meetings earlier this year that we should go out for proposals for the auditor services, since Moss Levy and Hartzheim have been our auditors for 6 years. Staff has sent out an RFP to 9 different auditing agencies, and RFPs are due by June 15th. Staff will bring the RFPs to the July FAC and board meetings for review and approval. Update on the 8th Street grant. As some of you may have heard, the district received the grant for the 8th Street well project for the full amount asked, which was $238,000. The project was approved at the IRWM and RAC meetings yesterday. The next step is for the proposed projects receiving the grants to go before the Board of Supervisors this fall. Final awarding will occur in the spring of 2020 by the Department of Drinking Water. The district engineer and I have a consent agenda item to ask the board to defer the 8th Street project until the spring in order to comply with the state guidelines. And possible, conservation update. Staff has been working with the Utilities Advisory Committee on the district rebate program. Under consent agenda 11K, there is a full report regarding the suggested program. Also an update regarding the conservation fair. The Los Osos Baywood Park Chamber of Commerce has been working on a conservation fair. This is a collaborative effort between the Chamber, Golden State Water Company, the county, and the district. This will also be the opportunity to announce the winners of the video contest. The middle school videos have been received and are currently being reviewed. We hope to announce the winners at the Conservation Fair on June 23rd. Under consent agenda item 11I is a staff report regarding the possibility of turning the old community garden on Farrell Avenue into a pocket park. Costs have been added to the 2019-20 Fund 900 Parks and Recreation budget, which was approved for a Snail survey to be done before staff can continue with any project on this property. And that's my updated report for now. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
So, just because I don't know, are you supposed to get a new auditor every 6 years? Is that the procedure?
No, it should be more than that. It should be less than that, pardon me. We should do it about every 4, and it was extended.
What's the purpose of that?
You want to?
Until recently,
Yeah,
there was no legal requirement at all to change auditors, and different jurisdictions had different policies. Within the last 5 or 6 years, the state indeed did pass a law requiring public agencies to change auditors every 6 years. Absent specialized circumstances, we wouldn't know yet if those would occur here. So you are required to change auditors and go out for review, no matter how happy you are with your auditor services. The policy reasons behind that are outside of my purview.
Okay.
Thank you.
My other question is, the rebate program, is that required? And what are we aiming to achieve with that?
Chuck, do you have a?
It's not required. No, it's essentially kind of an equivalent to Golden State's and the county's program. Water conservation is what we're after.
Okay.
So it's, I think, did we include, yeah, we've got washers in there, and then recirculating systems, on-demand hot water heaters, that kind of thing.
The recirculating system, does that save you water, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, all the items in there.
Yes.
So it seems, it was something that this board has been trying to do for many years. And so that's why there is a conservation budget, in fact, a conservation reserve. So this is going to be the first time out. I mean, it was tried once before, I guess, but it never actually got off the ground.
Could you touch just a second on how because you collaborated with the county and Golden State on that program, right?
Could you speak up, because you're on TV, so they need to hear you.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on your work with the county and Golden State on that program?
Sure. Well, we started off with wanting to do something collaboratively for the public regarding conservation. And so one of the things that both the county and Golden State wanted to do was they were looking at revamping their rebate programs. It had been something that the Director Cesenia and I and Utility Advisory Committee we've been mulling over a rebate program, so we felt this was the opportunity to get it out to the public that there's still rebates out there. The Golden State felt that their customers had not really used the rebate program that they have to the fullest that they could have, and the county, it was starting to dwindle down there. And so, like I said, that they were in the middle of revamping it, and we thought this would be the perfect kickoff for the public to know that there's rebates out there and they could still conserve water and still save money, and at the same time, like I said, it's just a collaboration between all of us to try to do something community-wide together. And we've been working on again, the fair and what we want that to look like. We're going to have, we decided to have contractors there that could help the public with some of these items. Some of the rebate items are going to require some assistance from plumbers. And so we wanted to make it easier for the public to be able to have access to these kind of plumbers that can help them with their items. So they'll be there, they'll have tables so that they can talk to the plumbers about the items that they'd like to do. Anything else you think?
Yeah, just that, because we're offering items that aren't, the county's not offering, correct? Or are we duplicating?
There are some
complementary,
they're complementary. Some of them they have. All I can say is that our process is pain-free, where some of the processes are a little painful. So.
Okay, so Lynette, we have LOCAC and the chamber report. You get to give both.
Lynette Tornotsky. I am the LOCAC secretary, and I am reporting that our chairperson has stepped down, so we're looking for a new chairperson, and District 4 is missing that person. So it doesn't have to be from District 4 to be the chairperson, but we do need a new body in there, and so far, only one person has applied, so we could use some more bodies.
Could you clarify where District 4 is, just ballparkish?
I wish I could. It's sort of over in the Cabrillo, Monarch Grove, Vista de Oro section, kind of there. There's
can
a
go
map.
to your website and look at the
Yeah,
map.
locac.info. There's a place you can click on and you can see the actual map, so that will help you determine if you're in District 4 or not. But we really would like to see some more people step up, and hope one of you listening to this is out there. So we had Margaret Mayfield and Jim Stanfield, two of our members, be reappointed by Supervisor Gibson. And I would like to say on the minutes, our Commander Michael Manuele, who was here giving the sheriff's report, now gives us a actual paper copy, which I scan and put onto the end of the minutes, so you can see the actual stats. We didn't have County Senior Planner Carrie Brown at our meeting, so Bruce Gibson stepped up and told us a little bit about the Habitat Conservation Plan, which I know everybody is very interested in. It's on track to be presented to the Department of the Interior in the middle of June. It will be published on the Federal Register in the middle of July. At that point, it starts a 60-day comment period, and LOCAC will be alerted when that comment period starts. Supervisor Gibson sort of talked about some of the voting things. I'm not going to go into that, but there will be some changes on how you cast your vote and where you put it. So that's coming up in 2020. He also spoke about the June 4th Board of Supervisors meeting. So there are going to be some minor amendments on the cannabis ordinance, and we at LOCAC have been seeing quite a few cannabis projects pass through. So if you're interested in that, you can check out the minutes, and the links to the projects will be on the website as well. Oh, let's see. Oh, we want to thank Matt Fourcroy for being the representative from the CSD. He did a very nice job, and Chuck did a nice job the month before, so please keep them coming. We appreciate the reports. Let's see. Oh, that's on the other thing. On our outreach to the community, we're still hoping to get more people to sign up on our MailChimp. If you sign up with MailChimp, you'll get emails to find out when the meetings are and what's going on. And there was a complaint at the meeting that it was a chimpanzee, and so our webmaster has made it be a bear. So click on the bear and then you can sign up. Our traffic and circulation chairperson, Jan Harper, was telling us about how we're going through the circulation study. People might be interested in that. There's a long list of county priorities that we are reprioritizing to what we think we need in this community. So the Traffic and Circulation Committee is where you go to give your input. Golden State Water had a project which was at LOCAC. This is the May 23rd meeting, and there were so many questions about what the project was going to be. It's way up on the hill in Cabrillo. A lot of people came with their concerns. Golden State came back to our Land Use Committee, and so expect to see if you're interested in that tank that's going to be changed out. Please come to the next LOCAC meeting, which is the fourth Thursday of the month. Also, there's a coastal access sign on First Street that was put up recently, and there's going to be a unveiling and a little party on Saturday, June 8th at 2 p.m. It's at the corner of First and Santa Maria. Another project of interest that came through LOCAC was Bill Lee's First Street project. So if you're interested in that, please show up at LOCAC at the end of the month, the fourth Thursday. That date is June 27th, and that ends the LOCAC report.
Any questions on the LOCAC report? Okay, you can move on to the chamber report.
Why, thank you. Okay, we had a very successful event that was held last week. Sorry, I have so many papers here, I'm losing track.
Festival of Flavors.
Festival of Flavor, and it was very successful, and we're hoping to do it again next year. The Water Conservation Fair, which the Chamber is partnering with the CSD and Golden State Water, I think Renee covered that quite well. And I think the date is June 23rd, so I just wanted to make the community aware that June 23rd is the date. Come out to the community center and see what you can do to do further conservation on your house. We had a really nice mixer at Los Osos Cares at Sunnyside School last night. That's the organization that helps low-income people and has a lot of resources where they can get things. So that was last night. And then Wednesday, June 12th, there will be another mixer at Mindful Kindful University. And if you have any questions, you can look on our website, which is lobpchamber.org. Any questions?
Nope. Thank you. Okay, Fire Safe Council, nobody's here for that? Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot.
You were wishing. Okay, Emily in for Tom Wright for the FSC Los Osos Town or Group. And mostly this is just an update, which I'm sure Vicky will go over in the ESAC meeting. Some of the notes, hopefully. But we're having another town hall, and you're all invited. You better come on June the 15th at 10 a.m. at Sunnyside School. I've been working both with Tom, a couple volunteers, and Chief to kind of pull together not only the sheriff, but CHP. Vita's going to be speaking on behalf of Red Cross. We've got Bob Newman for CERT and several others to come kind of debrief us on not just fire safety, but emergency preparedness, and a big focus this year on how to evacuate. Tom and I sat down about 2 months ago. Actually, it was March 23rd after an ESAC meeting, an FSC meeting, and we decided to throw together, and it's pretty much been me posting, but the Los Osos Fire Awareness Facebook group, and we have about 125 members. It's not FSC official, but it's a way to convey kind of CAL FIRE information locally, what's going on in our community, news stories, and when we have either ESAC meetings or FSC meetings. So hopefully if everyone can just find their way to Facebook and share with a neighbor, we can get the word out about fire safety, emergency planning, etc. So that's about it for the FSC report, and we hope to see you there in June. Come, we're going to have, it's going to be June 15th at 10 a.m. And if you feel like helping out and setting up chairs, come on a little bit early. Oh, look, you've got the little sign there. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, there, if anyone wants to take flyers, we
Put that on the website.
it is.
It is.
It is on there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay, we'll move on to UAC.
Oh.
That's you.
Yes. We met at our normal third Wednesday this month. Had another review of the rate study. I think they practiced on us and did a pretty good job with this presentation. We had the usual capital improvement updates. Julie referred to one thing that did come out of that meeting, and that is we did talk about rebates for some of the penalties that were paid in Stage 3. And I don't know if that's an issue we're going to have to revisit now in light of that or not. I thought we were in pretty good agreement on that with the committee. Yeah, that's about it. We're just finalizing our the changes to the water shortage contingency plan, the Title II updates. I think that's about what we have left.
Any questions? Nope. Okay, financial, wait. Parks and Rec, I'm sorry. I was trying to get my report out of the way here. Parks and Rec.
All right, we met on May 21st, and most of our discussion revolved around the work on the Farrell Street property. We keep talking about Pocket Park, but this property offers a lot of, well, one other really big benefit, which is the possibility of an improved pathway between Farrell Street and 7th Street. So that would help kind of that corridor coming up out of Baywood and getting to the community park. So I kind of wanted to stress that because it's simpler to say Farrell Street Pocket Park, but it also has this benefit of improving circulation. And, right now that pathway is like a foot deep of sand and has these bike trails that are going all sideways because you can't really ride through it. But there's a lot of use, and I think it would be a good spot. So like Renee already talked about, our next step really is to conduct a snail survey. There was one done in 2007. Found no snails in that part of the property. We need to confirm that, and that's in the consent agenda tonight to approve those funds. The reality is even if we approve that today, the study, it has to be multiple studies after rain events, so the probability is that won't even happen until the fall, which is fine. It'll give us time to develop a better project description and budget for that job, and then hopefully kind of fall, winter, we're able to move forward and start formally engineering, submitting plans, and figuring out all the different pieces. So that's basically that piece of it. Our next meeting will be in July, Tuesday, July 16th at 5:30 right here. Will be our next meeting, and I'm sure we'll be talking more about that park and other pieces, maybe a little bit. We always do a HCP update, so we'll see where we're at then. Any questions from anybody?
Okay. Excuse me, ESAC?
ESAC met at the station this month. Actually, it was last month. We reviewed progress on ongoing projects and the fire budget. There was lively discussion. And we welcomed new members of the public to the meeting. We had people actually coming to that meeting. But the highlight of the ESAC meeting was the tour of the station house.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh.
This was just a review of things that are in progress, so it was, and there were no decisions made.
Okay, thank you. Okay, excuse me, Financial Advisory. The Financial Advisory Committee, we met on Monday before the meeting, like we always do. There was a recommendation that the board adopt a budget, which we already did, and a recommendation that the board go ahead and approve items 11C, D, F, G, and J. That's pretty much it. Any questions? Okay. All right. Any announcement of district and community interest, reports on attendance at other public meetings, training programs, conferences, and seminars?
I did the rack yesterday and saw Renee's presentation on our grant proposal for the 8th Street well. And again, that's fully, they recommended our fully funded grant. We asked for $238,000, and that's what the county hopefully will recommend. The Board of Supervisors, I guess, votes next, and then it goes up to State Water Resources Control Board. And hopefully they'll be in a good mood next spring.
All right.
I think we're in good shape.
All right.
Real quick question about that is, do we know which Board of Supervisors meeting that's at, and would it be good for us to attend, or somebody from the CSD attend that?
Yes, it would be a good idea if we all attended, but it'll be in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have a date yet, but
We don't have a date right now. I will let you know.
response to previously asked questions, none. Okay, so public comment for items on the administrative and, well, first of all, does anybody want to pull an item? Does anybody want to pull an item? Any
Yeah, I
other?
had a question about F.
You want to pull it, or
Sure.
you can ask a question, or do you want to pull it?
Let's pull it.
Let's pull it and talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll take public comment on the administrative and committee reports, except for 11F.
Julie Tacker again, and I would have hoped that 11K, the district's water conservation rebate program, and 11L, the leak rebates for water shortage contingency would have been heard, pulled perhaps. These are opportunities for you to talk about conservation. These are opportunities to use this platform as outreach to the very people that we want to save water. So I don't know why stuff like this gets tucked in to a consent calendar. You should be having a full PowerPoint presentation on what's available in that water conservation rebate program. This is your time to have a commercial, and you're not using it. With regard to the emergency services report, last I heard that emergency services work plan did not include looking at the budget. So did you look at the budget at that meeting? I'm sure you'll get back to me. The other subject I would like to discuss is the Parks and Rec item, and Chuck's a biologist. Marshall, you're an environmental and land use attorney. Both of you know, when you read a snail survey and it says that they found shell, that doesn't mean they didn't find any snails. They found shell. So this area in this report from 2007 had presence. That's presence of endangered species. So I actually spoke to Carrie Brown at the county after Renee did about whether or not you need an HCP or a permit and those things. I hope she's been copying you on their correspondence. If not, I think you might want to wait on approving any contract for another Snail survey, because the project description that Renee gave her, based on that, Carrie said you don't need a permit. But based on that is not the path that Matthew and I want to see improved. The project description that Renee described, and it's in the correspondence, is benches, picnic benches, and landscaping. That is not improving a path, putting in a play structure, irrigating a lawn, any of those possibilities.
Thank
And I
you.
hate to see you invest in another Snail survey
Thank you,
when you
Julie.
don't know
Thank
what
you.
you really want on the property.
Other public comment on those two items, please?
What?
Any other public comment on administrative committee reports and the consent agenda?
I just wanted on the record my objection to 11G, the transfer to Rabobank. I don't think the board was fully informed of the bank that they're putting the money into. I'm going to leave it at that at this point. And this staff report is going to quickly be outdated with the reduction in rates. So we'll see how this plays out down the road, but I don't think you're going to garner the return that you're looking for. The other comment, Vicki stated that the budget was looked at emergency services. It wasn't. The financial statements were looked at. Emergency services is the only committee that did not look at their related budgets. Even Parks and Rec got a chance to look at their budget. And the way CAL FIRE got into this community was through the committee process. That's where it was discovered, the mismanagement of funds from the previous chief, the extravagant expenditures that weren't needed. There was actually Chuck will remember this, Marshall may remember this too, there was actually a fire truck purchased as a project that was only driven out of the bay one time. We had to sell that thing to Oceano at a loss because it had no purpose in Los Osos. It was just another toy that the previous chief, this is before CAL FIRE came on, the previous chief wanted. Those things were all discovered through the committee process, and that led to the underlying revolt of the community that something else had to happen in this community to keep our level of service, which ended up being an ability to increase our level of service to the point it is now, which is second to none in the unincorporated. But that happened because the budgets and all the financial issues were before that committee. And that committee was in place from the inception of this district.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes.
So I didn't want to bring this up during the FSC presentation, but I'm going to point some direction here. So I need young people like Matt to get involved in outreach for this event that we're having for the town hall, because in the past we've fallen short with kind of the millennial and Gen X too, and I'm a Gen Xer, but it would be really great if you could email everyone that you know, and that's not to age the rest of you. You're all welcome to take that flyer and email everyone you know. And I just wanted to make a comment on what you were saying, Richard. We did have not a budget review at ESAC. Sorry, we didn't have a budget review at ESAC, but we had a robust discussion about somehow making finance committee or not making, but getting finance to debriefing committee together with ESAC. So, and I think we had a pretty good discussion about that. So, Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Bring it back for a motion, please. So we have the consent agenda, all the items except 11F, which has been pulled.
So I move that we approve the consent agenda minus F.
And receive and file the administrative and committee reports?
Yes.
Thank you.
I second the motion.
You're making a motion. Oh, you're seconding?
Yes.
Who's seconding?
I'm seconding.
Oh,
She
I'm
made the
sorry.
motion.
Okay. All right. So do we need a roll call? Do we have resolutions? Okay, thank you.
Director Womack?
Yes.
Director Millage?
Yes.
Director Forkroy?
Yes.
Vice President Sisenia?
Yes.
President Ohelski?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that moves us down to 12A, which I hate to say this, but I'm going to recommend we continue this item. I think that there's a number of issues that still need to be addressed.
12A?
Yes. Any comments on continuing?
Oh, I'm in agreement.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That was a lot of information that got dropped on us, and we've been asking for answers to those same questions, and they're slow coming.
So we'll continue 12A. If anybody has any comments on them, feel free. Right now is your chance.
Julie Tacker, and I welcome the continuance. I'm exhausted by this subject, but it has to come to some resolution. And your staff report is wholly inadequate. Again, the missing discussion is an accounting of what we know is ineligible, what is questionably ineligible. I have no doubt in my mind, but the accounting has to be done so that you know who owes what. And we know that pre-agenda meetings are not eligible, yet your staff is recommending that that's part of the motion to approve whatever you end up doing. We know that meeting with staff is not eligible. Meeting with the LOCAC chair is not eligible. Meeting with a finance committee member is not eligible. So why don't we just figure that out first, check it off and get reimbursed? And then if we have to still talk about what's eligible, then we'll have that conversation.
Thank you. Any other comment? Okay, we'll close public comment. I'm going to, can I do this, Roy? I wanted to have a committee, an ad hoc committee to get the answers to this. Can I appoint one right now? It's not on the agenda, but
The most current legal opinion is that if you're going to appoint a standing committee, it has to be on the agenda. This was just subject of discussion at the recent.
I'm talking about an ad hoc,
Well, that's the only case on point discusses standing committees, not ad hoc committees. And we were just discussing this very issue at the California Lawyers Association conference on Friday, which for guys like me is the state bar.
Okay, can I do it or not?
I agree with the majority of people at the state bar convention, which is ad hoc committees, yes.
Okay, so I want to sit down with legal counsel and Renee and talk about this. Does anybody else want to do that with me? Looking for volunteers.
Oh, when?
Well, we can figure out a time. I mean,
I need it to be in the next 2 weeks, then I'd be happy to do it, if it's in July.
all right. Anybody else?
You need to do it in the next 2 weeks, because if it's going to be in July, it won't be.
You won't be here, yeah.
That's another.
Is anybody else interested besides Chris?
I'm interested, but we only need 2, right?
We can only have 2.
Yeah, so you guys take care of it.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, Chris, you and I will figure out a time and get together and work this thing through. All right, thank you. Yeah, ad hoc of myself and Chris, and then, okay, so the last thing on the agenda here is, we have the discussion of the pulled item, I'm sorry. Consider a special SDRMA Board of Directors election ballot. I can speak to that since I'm familiar with special districts. Being the president of the local chapter. My attitude would be we should vote for Mr. Swan, who is the incumbent, and that would be my recommendation. He seems to be doing a good job.
We vote for 3 or 1 or 1, 2, or 3. What is it says vote for 3.
Right. I'm just telling you the only one I'm familiar with.
Oh, I gotcha.
Just checking, so if we only voted for one,
We don't have to.
that wouldn't negate any, the ballot, right?
No. All right, can we have public comment on this item? Okay, bring it back for discussion. You guys are a tough crowd.
I read the applications. I agreed with Mr. Swan. I thought if we were voting for 3, I would have chosen Jesse Claypool and Sandy Seifert, based on going through their materials as presented.
It's up to you, is that a motion?
Sure. I move to vote for Bob Swan, Jesse Claypool, and Sandy Seifert.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Any more discussion? You guys are overly interested in this one, I can tell. All right, all in favor?
We need public comment?
I already did that.
We did already? Okay.
Nobody had any.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous. Okay, and last but not least on our action items here is the pulled item, which is 11F. I'll turn it over to Chris since she pulled it.
Okay, I just had a question. Do they allow you to have more than one account, or can you only have one account at LAIF? Is it possible to segregate? So, okay, that was I was wondering.
It's unless there's any other.
Recommended, yeah.
Yeah, it was recommended by.
Yeah, for future references, questions can be asked about consent items, so you don't have to pull them to do that.
Well, that's why that's why I asked. I just said I had a quick question.
Yeah. Okay, so public comment then on item 11F.
I'm really surprised that that's all the questions there were. Has anybody read this staff report? Okay. Then for the reconciliation of reserves, actually the last page of the agenda item, the paragraph that starts with during. If anybody can explain that contradictory statement in relation to what the narrative is on the first page, then I believe the board can approve this. But that statement says that 2 different things were done. Not together. 2 different things were done. Not one leading to the other. 2 different things were done. The 19,848 was the deficit in drainage for that year. That's what was pulled from reserves. So you can't have it both ways. I brought this up at finance. You have 3 different amounts for drainage reserves. You have one document that states it's 139,962. You have one from March 22nd that says it's 227,293, and your audit says it's 338,000. You approve this, you're approving an inaccurate report and an inaccurate accounting of the reserves for drainage. If you approve this at the 139, there's $200,000 that's unaccounted for, according to the audit.
Julie Tacker again, and I was at finance too, and I thought, Marshall, that finance, you said, maybe it was a different item, that you would get these numbers resolved, because I pointed out that the Parks and Rec number is last year's audited number, and there's been an enormous budget adjustment to accommodate the rubber chip project, but it didn't get booked yet, or it didn't happen yet, according to Renee, contradictory to something Renee had said a month or so ago. So if the numbers change, if the reserve numbers change, the percentages change. You're adopting something as of today. Are you adopting something that's in flux? Because I really think you need today's actual numbers, or as of July 1st, whatever that's going to be, you need to have the accurate numbers. The Parks and Rec number is one I'm watching. Richard's watching drainage clearly more closely than I am, but it's not right. It's not accurate. So please continue it. Get the correct numbers.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, close public comment. Yes, there was a question at FAC to clarify the discrepancies in the staff report, so.
So there is no discrepancy. If you go to the last page that Richard was talking about, it says drainage reserves balance $227,293.62. Now at the very bottom it says drainage reserve balance is $139,962.74. So if you see, you can see the accounting from Adrian. Sorry, I'm forgetting her name. From Adrian, and so that is what she says the reserve balance is of that date. So this is our bookkeeper doing accounting with our auditor, and that's what she says the balance is. So I don't know how else to explain other than the fact that that's the number that she says it is. So, I mean, other than that, I mean, there's the
Richard, please.
And out of in February,
Richard,
we gave a report to FAC and to the board that you guys approved, which you're looking at right now, which had to do with moving via journal entry. We paid for these drainage items with reserve money. So was it physically done as mentioned? No. A lot of the times physical, we don't move the money around physically, we move it around via journal entries. And so you guys approved this just like we did.
What's the difference between moving money physically and journal entry?
Richard.
Would you quiet down in the back? What's the difference between physically moving money and a journal entry? I mean, we don't pick up money and take it from this bank to that bank.
Correct. So via journal entries, they keep track of how they spend the money. And so we had asked in one of our budgets that we would spend this money via our reserves, and that was the report that you see before you in January. Oh, I thought it was February. In January, where we presented the board with the amount that we used from reserves to pay for these items.
But how much did we spend? The narrative underneath the last page of that report, it says during the 17-18 fiscal year, $87,000 was spent in capital improvements. This reduces our drainage capital outlay reserves from 195 to 107. So that kind of implies that 80-some thousand dollars was spent out of reserves. Then it says, during the same year, we budgeted using 16 of reserves, but instead spent 19,848. What did we spend out of reserves? What's the real number there?
So we ended up spending 16, so we thought that we were going to spend an additional 19, and we didn't. We ended up spending, or no, I think we just said that backwards. We budgeted saying that we would need $16,471 of reserves, but instead we went over. We ended up spending an additional 19,000.
But the sentence right above that talks about 80-some thousand.
That has to do with the actual projects and the budget before we're
Richard.
talking about like expense, all the rest of the expenses.
Richard, please. Richard.
I have a question on the front page.
Well, I had a question on that page.
Okay, go ahead.
Because if you go to the Fund 800 drainage number up above, which for lack of a better term, I'll call a spreadsheet.
Yes.
On the last page.
Sure.
It shows the capital outlay reserve 195,055.40. But then if we go down to the first paragraph, the second sentence says, this reduces our drainage capital outlay reserves from 055.40 to 107.
Yes.
So where is that reflected? Because we're showing up above that it's still 195, but then in that first paragraph, we're saying it's down to 107,000. So that's where to me, those two things don't comport with each other. And maybe we just need to get better explanation from Adrian, I don't know.
Sure, if that's what you would like. We can just get better explanation from Adrian.
So I'm wondering if we can, in the future, word the motion in a way that we give the interest where we adjust the percentage as needed. Because if we take money out, I mean, it's just, do we have to put it in this thing that we approve at this snapshot in time and then it changes all the time?
I believe that that's actually even what FAC had said, was that, that this is probably going to move around every year. This isn't going to be forever because there'll be money moving in or out.
Right.
And
So I'm just thinking the way we should word the motion should be different and shouldn't put it in stone.
Sure. But the most important thing is we're trying to designate the funds, the LAF funds to be drainage and parks. That's the main thing. Because right now, it's currently drainage, parks, fire, and water. Even though we've already separated out water and we've already separated out fire, unfortunately, this was done via resolution a while back. And in order to change, so that's the main thing. We want to change it to be LAF and for LAF to be drainage and parks funds. That's the main thing.
What I would recommend that you do is you just designate the LAF account to drainage and parks and recreation reserves, and then you make allocations of interest earned on that later when you feel like it. Those aren't enterprise funds in that sense, especially the recreation. So you wouldn't have to allocate interest earned to that fund the same as you would for water reserves. So it's
maybe,
and government accounting isn't the same as business accounting.
right, that's where I'm.
So I wouldn't.
We all know that.
Yeah. So but that's one reason why trying to attach a number, even if we think it a percentage down to the 100th of a point there, I don't think it accomplishes anything for you, but it conversely complicates things potentially in the future.
Well, but the money's already in LAF, so we're not moving it.
No, you're just designating.
No, but the interest needs to go into one of the funds, like there's an interest item.
Do we need to make that part of the motion? Can we just say that
For
we are
right now,
now
we don't.
designating I move that we now designate the LAF fund as drainage and Parks and Rec,
Yes,
period?
yes.
And
We could just put a number to it, like 70-30 for now.
no, I don't want to put a number to it because that number is going to change all the time as you add funds and take funds. So I'd rather say something general, like to maybe we don't have to say it outright, but, to, I don't know
Well,
what the
the
right word,
money's
accrue
already-
interest monthly, to
Yeah.
do a monthly accounting of it, but to not specify in black and white what it is, because it's moving all the time.
Okay,
Yes,
but what about, so we're gonna have the LAIF fund for drainage and Parks and Rec, okay?
yes,
We're gonna have that.
yes.
Okay. So if you take the motion that you have in here, the first sentence, I think that's fine.
Yes. And then we'll have Adrian at the next month.
And then the percent, starting the next sentence, and then so if you keep the first sentence and then say, or just move 226,02478 from LAIF to Robobank for water, and then just figure out the percentage at a later date.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the best way to go.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope this is my last question.
I'm just trying to figure this out
Yeah.
too, so.
First page of that staff report, under discussion, it says LAIF account has a total of $657,643.09. Very next paragraph talks about drainage having 139,962.74 in reserves and Parks and Rec 291. Is that those are in LAIF?
Those are in LAIF right now.
What else adds up to that 657? That's not water from money from water, is it?
The 226.
291 and 139 don't make 657.
So 291, 139, and the 226
And
up there. That's why with the remainder of that is water, because fire we already moved over a year ago.
The discussion paragraphs don't call that out explicitly. You just have to add the number from up above in the motion.
I would just like, personally, just to designate the LAIF account and then move the 226 to Robobank and then work on the rest.
On the percentages later,
Yes.
yeah.
I think that's the best way to do it.
Yes.
Because we're not specifying a number, we're just saying we're transferring the water funds to Rabobank, and then we're going to deal with the rest once we get more detailed information.
Well, we certainly need some more accounting and explanation, I think, on the drainage, so it's crystal clear to
I
everybody.
think it, yeah. So we can either move the 226 over now, or just continue the whole thing. That would be one of those two options is what I would personally prefer at this point. And then deal with the other numbers at a
Yes,
later date.
yeah. We can, she'll have to get something to you quickly because the end of June, she has to allocate that interest, before the end of June 30th books, so,
So 226,000 of that LAIF money is water's.
yes.
Why isn't water getting some of that interest then?
Because, that's a different, because for right now, we're trying to move all of water's money in one spot.
That will make it easier,
that would
is
make it
segregating
yes,
things
that's what we're
out. Then you
trying
don't
to
have
do
to worry about splitting
Exactly.
interest.
That's what we were trying to do is we move water's money out, put it in waters, then what's left over, and then we, split up the interest for the two. That's what we're trying to do is unmingle all this money that's been put all in.
Stop him from talking, he's distracting me.
Richard, please. So we got to do something here,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I move that we designate the LAIF fund for Drainage, Parks and Rec and move the $226,024.78 from LAIF to Rabobank Money Market for water. And that we revisit the percentages at a later date and direct staff to provide
More
better
detail.
accounting on the drainage funds.
I'll second that.
But you're saying we have to have this by the end of June, or what are you saying?
Well, she can do the booking of the interest in July, but that's the absolute latest that she can do it, so that we don't get a mark on our audit. So I'll make sure that before Adrian goes on vacation, she does another report.
What Adrian is going to know if this motion passed is that up until the time the money is moved from LAIF to the water reserve funds, whatever the appropriate amount of interest earned that should go to the water funds will go to the water funds, and whatever was the appropriate amount for the other funds will go to the other funds. Then thereafter, likewise, the fund is designated for, the account is designated for two funds. How much interest they earn will depend on how much is in, because you have expenditures
I got it.
during the course of the year. That's why the old, I get to say this now, everyone always complains, this is the way we do it in Los Osos, you can't change. Well, the old way of doing it here, where you're always assigning these arbitrary snapshot numbers of interest or parts of interest, were silly.
Yeah.
Because they were never real for any moment other than the snapshot. Because fund accounting doesn't work that way. Some funds get money all the time, some funds get money twice a year, and the expenditures are hectic. And so you always account for it afterwards, and you have your audit check and make sure that you accounted for it correctly, or you make an adjustment to fix it. And if it turns out when you do your audit, you have to make an adjustment, everybody does that all the time. It doesn't mean it was an imperfection in the way you ran the business.
So we don't need to designate the percentages?
No.
And that it's been done that way in the past, and that's why we're doing it now, but going forward, we don't need to?
Correct.
Okay.
We're happy with that. Go ahead, Chip.
Okay, yes, I guess we will.
So we had a first and a second, right? Okay.
We can do this by roll call. Maybe we should wait for that last vote to come back. You ready for a vote? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? No. Yes, I'm opposed.
Oh, Chip's opposed to.
Yeah, I'm just not comfortable with that whole, I'm not sure how much water money is in LAIF even. Is that an abstention?
It is,
Okay,
It's going to be an abstention?
okay.
He's saying he's abstention.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
3-0 absent.
Okay, absent.
Okay.
Okay. So any future agenda items?
That's where we're at.
Okay, closing board comments. I would just have one announcement for the public. We will be having a special meeting on, June 13th to interview our legal counsel candidates. So that's all I got. At 3 o'clock.
I'm sorry, what time is it?
3 o'clock.
3.
3 o'clock.
Closed session, right?
Yes.
We will also have open session after our interviews, hopefully to select the council.
It's my annual reminder that school is out. The kids are loose in the streets again. So watch your speeds. Be aware of the fact that when you're behind the wheel, that is your job, driving. Thank you.
Yeah, and be careful, the Napomo traffic signal is working. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so we'll see you all a week from today. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.